There are nights when the soul is so heavy that walking becomes impossible. Emily knew that weight. She had carried it for years like a stone in her chest, believing it was all she deserved. Her green eyes, once bright as promises of spring, had grown used to looking at the ground, to avoiding mirrors, to existing in the margins of her own life. But on that rainy night in New York City, as she boarded the bus that would take her toward the unknown, something changed in the air she breathed. She didn't know it yet, but her feet were carrying her toward a garden in Charleston where a man with blue eyes and a heartbroken child were unknowingly waiting for her. Life, whimsical and wise, had decided it was time for three wounded souls to meet, to learn that true love doesn't erase scars, it turns them into maps toward happiness. The rain beat furiously against the windows of the small apartment in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Emily Johnson, 20 years old, stood motionless in front of the broken bathroom mirror, contemplating her fragmented reflection. Her green eyes, normally bright as emeralds in the sun, now looked dull, swollen from the tears she had shed over the last 48 hours. "You can't go on like this," she whispered to herself, her trembling fingers touching the reddish mark that adorned her left cheek. Mark's slap still hurt, but not as much as the words she had heard the night before. "You're a nobody, Emily. Without me, you're nothing. Nobody will ever love you the way I do." The phone vibrated on the unmade bed, a message from her younger sister, Sarah. Have you decided? The job in Charleston is still available. Mrs. Miller says she needs someone trustworthy to look after her grandson. It's a good opportunity to start over." Emily closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The aroma of coffee rising from Mr. Henderson's bakery on the ground floor reminded her that life was going on, even though her world had fallen apart. Charleston represented a possibility, an escape from the toxic routine she had built with Mark over the last 2 years. She walked to the window and watched the wet street. People scurried under their umbrellas, each with their own story, their own struggles. Just then, a black SUV pulled up in front of the building. A tall man with dark hair and an impeccable suit got out of the vehicle. His blue eyes, intense as a stormy ocean, glanced up at her window for a moment. Emily quickly stepped back, her heart pounding for no apparent reason. "What was that?" she murmured, touching her chest. It had been months since she had felt that strange sensation in her stomach, like butterflies waking after a long winter. The apartment doorbell rang insistently. Emily peered through the peephole and saw Mark soaking wet with a bouquet of red roses in his hands, and that smile that used to melt her, but which now made her nauseous. Baby, open up. We need to talk. What happened the other day was a misunderstanding. You know I love you more than life itself." The words reached her ears like distant echoes. Emily slid down the door until she was sitting on the cold floor. Her hands trembled as she dialed her sister's number. "Sarah, I'll take the job. I'm leaving for Charleston tomorrow." On the other end of the line, her sister sighed in relief. "I knew you'd make the right decision. Mrs. Miller is a very good person. Her grandson's name is Leo. He's 8 years old and, well, he's been through some tough times. His mom died 6 months ago in a car accident. A motherless child." Emily felt something stir in her chest. She, too, had grown up without a mother since she was 15, when cancer had taken her mercilessly. She knew exactly what that loneliness meant, that feeling of navigating a world too large without its most important beacon. "And the boy's father?" she asked, though something inside her already sensed the answer. "It's complicated. Mrs. Miller told me her son is a very successful man, but since his wife's death he hasn't been able to connect with Leo. He works all the time, travels constantly. That's why they need someone to stay with the boy." Mark was still pounding on the door, now more desperately. His shouts filtered through the thin walls. "Emily, I know you're in there. You can't run from me. We belong together." "Sarah, I have to go. Mark is here and I don't want him to see me leave. Can you send me Mrs. Miller's address?" "I already sent it on WhatsApp." This is the best thing you can do. I can feel it." After hanging up, Emily packed her few belongings into a worn-out suitcase she had inherited from her mother. Every piece of clothing she folded carried memories she wanted to leave behind. The blue dress she wore on her first date with Mark, the white sweater he gave her when he was still sweet and attentive, the jeans she was wearing the first time he hit her. While packing, she found a forgotten photograph between the pages of a book. It was a picture of her at 18, graduating from high school. Her green eyes shone with hope, with dreams that now seemed to have been buried under layers of fear and resignation. In that photo, she held a diploma and smiled with all the confidence in the world. She had planned to study psychology to help children with family traumas. What happened to me? She wondered, gently stroking the picture. When did I stop believing in myself? A harder knock on the door brought her back to reality. Mark had started kicking the wood. Emily took her suitcase, her handbag, and the photograph. She headed for the back door that led to the fire escape. Before leaving, she left a note on the kitchen table. "Mark, this is over. Don't look for me. I'm not coming back." The fire escape was slippery from the rain. Each step she took brought her closer to her freedom, but also further away from the only world she knew. When she reached the back alley, she looked up at her old window. Mark had managed to get into the apartment and was now shouting her name from the balcony. A taxi stopped at the corner, as if destiny had heard her silent prayers. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, helped her with her suitcase. "Where to, miss?" "To the Port Authority bus terminal. I'm going to Charleston." As the taxi drove away through the wet streets of New York, Emily felt the weight she had been carrying in her chest slowly begin to lighten. She didn't know what awaited her in Charleston, but for the first time in months, she had made a decision for herself. The bus terminal was full of stories similar to hers, people leaving one life behind to build another. She bought her ticket for the 11:30 p.m. bus for $85 and sat down to wait. Next to her, an elderly woman was knitting a pink sweater for her granddaughter. "First time traveling alone, dearie?" the woman asked with a motherly voice. "Yes," Emily replied, "but I feel like it's the right thing to do. The heart always knows, dearie. You just have to learn to listen to it over the fear." When they called for boarding, Emily got on the bus with a firm step. She found her seat by the window, and as Charleston drew closer with every mile, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. The bus arrived in Charleston as the sun began to paint the church steeples gold. Emily woke up with a sore neck, but with a strange feeling in her chest. For the first time in months, she had slept without nightmares. The Charleston bus terminal was bustling with morning activity. Vendors offered steaming coffee and hot dogs, while loudspeakers announced departures and arrivals. Emily grabbed her suitcase and headed for the exit, where she was supposed to meet Mrs. Miller. "Emily!" She heard a sweet voice behind her. She turned and saw a woman in her 60s, with grey hair tied in an elegant bun and warm brown eyes. She wore a navy blue shawl over a simple but well-kept dress. "Mrs. Miller, it's a pleasure to meet you," Emily replied, extending her hand. But Mrs. Miller wrapped her in a motherly hug that took her by surprise. She smelled of vanilla and cinnamon, like Sunday afternoons at her grandmother's house. "Oh dear, you're so thin. I can tell you haven't been eating well, but don't you worry, we'll fix that right up in my house." During the taxi ride to a historic neighborhood downtown, Mrs. Miller told her about Charleston with evident pride. She pointed out the historic market, Rainbow Row, the beautiful fountains in Waterfront Park. "This city has a soul, Emily. People here still greet each other on the street, still care about their neighbors. You'll see, it will do you good to be here." Mrs. Miller's house was a historic two-story home, painted terracotta with white-framed windows. A small front garden displayed roses, geraniums, and a magnolia tree that was beginning to bloom. Emily felt an immediate sense of peace as she walked through the wrought iron gate. "This will be your room," Mrs. Miller said, leading her to a room on the upper floor. It was simple but cozy, a single bed with a floral quilt, an antique wooden desk, a white-painted wardrobe, and a window overlooking the back garden. Emily left her suitcase on the bed. "It's perfect, Mrs. Miller. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity." Oh dear, the opportunity's all mine. Since, since my daughter-in-law died, Leo hasn't been the same. He's a very smart boy, but he's very closed off. His father, well, my son David is lost in his grief and his work. He needs someone young with patience and a good heart. A door slammed downstairs, followed by hurried footsteps on the stairs. "Grandma, I'm home from school," a child's voice shouted. "Leo, come here. I want you to meet someone very special." An 8-year-old boy appeared in the doorway. He had messy brown hair, freckles sprinkled across his cheeks, and the same intense blue eyes Emily had seen the night before on that man. In the black SUV, he wore a wrinkled school uniform and a Spider-Man backpack slung over one shoulder. "Leo, this is Emily. She's going to stay with us and help you with your homework and other things while I'm busy." The boy looked at her with suspicion, like a wounded animal that has learned not to trust strangers. "Is she going to stay for a long time, or is she going to leave like all the others?" he asked, with a seriousness that broke Emily's heart. "I don't know, Leo," she answered, honestly, crouching down to his level. "But while I'm here, you can count on me." The boy studied her in silence for several seconds. Then he nodded slightly and went to his room. "Give him time," Mrs. Miller whispered. "He's had to say goodbye to a lot of people lately." That afternoon, while Mrs. Miller prepared dinner, Emily sat in the back garden reading a book. The Charleston sun was different from New York's, softer, more golden. Bougainvillea climbed the pale yellow walls, creating a symphony of colors that calmed her restless soul. Leo appeared with a baseball glove and ball. "Know how to play catch?" he asked, tossing the ball in the air. "A little. My sister and I used to play when we were little." "You have a sister? Where is she?" "She lives in Philadelphia with her husband and their baby." "And your parents?" Emily felt the familiar lump in her throat. "My mom died when I was 15. My dad, well, he's not with us." Leo stopped, tossing the ball. He slowly approached and sat on the grass beside her. "My mum died too," he said quietly. 6 months ago. A truck hit her when she was going to get ice cream for my birthday." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She moved closer to the boy, but without touching him, respecting his space. "I'm so sorry, Leo. That must be very hard. My dad says she's in heaven watching over me, but I don't understand why, if she's watching over me, she can't come down and hug me when I have nightmares." "You know what I think?" Emily said, choosing her words carefully. "I think your mom does hug you when you have nightmares. It's just that she does it in a different way now. Sometimes when I miss my mom a lot, I feel like the wind is her caress, or like the rain is her tears telling me she loves me." Leo looked at her with eyes full of curiosity. "Do you really believe that?" "I really do." "Do you want to see a picture of my mom?" Leo ran into the house and came back with a framed photograph. In it, a beautiful woman with light brown hair and a radiant smile was hugging a smaller Leo in front of a fountain. Her name was Annabelle. She was very pretty, wasn't she? And she made the best pancakes in the world. "She looks like she was a very special mom," Emily said, carefully handing the photo back. "And it looks like she loved you very much." "Yeah, my dad says I have her eyes, but I have his heart. Although lately my dad doesn't talk to me much. He's always working or locked in his office." At that moment, the roar of an engine was heard on the street. A black SUV parked in front of the house. Emily felt her pulse quicken. "That's my dad," Leo said, quickly putting the photograph away. His expression changed, becoming more cautious. A tall man got out of the vehicle. When he turned toward the house, Emily could confirm what she had suspected. It was the same man she had seen the night before in New York. His blue eyes, identical to Leo's, found her immediately across the garden. David Williams was 30, but the dark circles and expression lines on his face made him look older. He wore a flawlessly tailored grey suit, but his tie was loose and his normally slicked-back hair showed signs that he had run his hands through it repeatedly during the day. "Dad!" Leo shouted, running toward him. David hugged his son, but Emily noticed a certain stiffness in the gesture, as if he didn't quite know how to express affection. "Hey, champ, how was school?" "Good. Dad, I want you to meet Emily. She's going to take care of me when Grandma's busy. David's eyes lifted again to where she stood by the garden table. For a moment, something passed between them, an inexplicable connection, a recognition that went beyond the circumstances. "A pleasure to meet you," he said, approaching with a determined stride. His voice was deep, slightly hoarse, as if he had been yelling a lot or crying in silence. "You too, Mr. Williams," Emily replied, extending her hand. When their hands touched, they both felt an electric shock that made them pull their hands away quickly. David looked at her intently, as if trying to solve a puzzle. "Have we met before?" he asked, frowning slightly. Emily felt her cheeks flush. "I don't think so. I just arrived from New York City." "Ah," was all he said, but his eyes continued to study her face. Mrs. Miller appeared at the back door of the house. "David, honey, you're just in time for dinner. Emily, come, let's set the table." During dinner, David remained mostly silent, responding with monosyllables to his mother's and Leo's questions. Emily noticed how his hands trembled slightly as he brought the spoon to his mouth, and how he avoided making eye contact with her. "Dad, did you know that Emily also lost her mum when she was young?" Leo said suddenly. David looked up for the first time all dinner, looking directly at Emily. "I'm sorry," he murmured, and in that simple phrase there was so much contained pain that she felt the urge to reach out and touch his hand. "Thank you," she replied softly. "Emily told me that sometimes the mums who are in heaven hug us with the wind," Leo continued, oblivious to the tension that had arisen between the adults. David closed his eyes for a moment, as if those words had physically struck him. "Leo, finish your dinner," he said in a strained voice. "But Dad, finish your dinner," David repeated, now with a harsher tone that made the boy shrink in his chair. An uncomfortable silence settled at the table. Emily felt the need to intervene. "Leo, will you help me clear the plates?" she asked gently. The boy nodded, grateful for the distraction. As they carried the plates to the kitchen, Emily could hear David's deep voice speaking with his mother in the dining room. "Mum, I don't know if this is a good idea. We don't need another stranger in the house. David, that girl has a heart of gold, and Leo has already connected with her. Since Annabelle died, I haven't seen him smile. Like that? That's exactly why it's not a good idea. Leo can't keep getting attached to people who are going to leave. He's suffered enough already. And haven't you suffered enough too? When was the last time you talked about her? When was the last time you let someone help you?" Emily couldn't hear David's response because Leo touched her arm. "Does my dad not want you to stay?" he asked with sad eyes. "Your dad just wants to protect you," she replied, carefully drying a plate. "Sometimes, when people have lost someone very important, they're afraid of losing someone else again. But you're not going to leave, are you?" Emily crouched down to the boy's level. She looked into his eyes, those blue eyes so much like his father's. "Leo, I can't promise you I'll stay forever, but I can promise that while I'm here, I'll take care of you and be there when you need me." The boy nodded, seemingly satisfied with that honest answer. That night, after Leo had fallen asleep, Emily sat in her room writing in the journal she had started on the bus trip. "Dear Diary, today I met a boy who reminds me that pain has no age, and a man who reminds me that lost love can become a prison if we don't learn to let it go. I don't know what I'm doing here, but for the first time in months, I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be." As she wrote, she heard footsteps in the garden. She looked out the window and saw David sitting on the back steps, smoking a cigarette. His silhouette was outlined against the moonlight, and Emily could see that his shoulders were shaking. He was crying. Without thinking, she put on a robe and went down to the garden. She approached slowly, without making a sound. "Are you okay?" she asked in a low voice. David startled and quickly wiped his eyes. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, abruptly putting out the cigarette. "Why not?" "Because—" He stopped, as if fighting with himself. "Because every time Leo gets attached to someone, that person leaves, and I can't watch him go through that again." Emily sat on the steps, keeping some distance. What if I don't leave? They all leave. The first nanny left because Leo cried too much at night. The second left because I worked too much and she felt lonely. The third left because she said this house was full of ghosts. And is it full of ghosts? David looked at her directly for the first time since dinner. Yes, he admitted. The ghost of my wife is in every corner. In the kitchen where she made coffee every morning, on the sofa where we watch movies, in the bed where I can't sleep anymore. How long has it been since you've slept well? 6 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days, he answered immediately, as if keeping an exact count. The pain in his voice was so palpable that Emily felt a lump form in her throat. Mr. Williams, David, you can call me David. David, I'm not just any nanny. I've lost important people too, and I know that pain doesn't go away by ignoring it, but it also doesn't go away by clinging to it. How can you know that? You're so young. Because I've lived for 2 years in a relationship that was slowly killing me, hoping things would get better. Because I've spent 5 years blaming myself for not being able to save my mum from cancer. Because I know what it's like to wake up every day feeling like you're a ghost in your own life. David looked at her with an intensity that made her shiver. And how do you get out of it? I don't know, she admitted honestly, but I think the first step is letting someone walk the path with you. They remained in silence for several minutes, listening to the sound of the crickets and the wind in the leaves of the magnolia tree. Annabelle was my everything, David said finally. We met in college. She was studying architecture. I was studying law. She was the most vibrant person I've ever known. Always had a new project, a cause to defend, a dream to chase. Tell me about her, Emily said softly. David had just begun to talk about Annabelle when Emily's phone buzzed insistently. The screen showed an unknown number, but she immediately recognized the pattern. Mark had gotten her new number. Excuse me, she murmured, quickly turning off the phone. But David had noticed the change in her expression, the sudden paleness that had washed over her face. Is everything okay? Yes, it's just someone I'd rather not hear from. The phone buzzed again. Then again, and again. David slowly approached. Are you in trouble? Emily rose from the steps, hugging herself. The Charleston night had grown cool, but the chill she felt came from within. It was my ex-boyfriend. I don't know how he got my new number. Did he hurt you? David asked, and there was something in his voice that made Emily look at him directly. His blue eyes showed a mixture of concern and something darker, more protective, physically and emotionally. She admitted, surprised at her own honesty. That's why I came to Charleston, to escape him. David stood up, his hands clenched into fists. Where does he live? In New York. But David, you can't. What's his name? Mark. But seriously, it's not your problem. I can. Emily, he said, gently taking her by the shoulders. The contact sent an electric current through her entire body. No one, and listen to me carefully, no one has the right to hurt you. And as long as you are in my house, under my protection, that man is not going to get near you. She looked into his eyes, those eyes that during dinner had been full of pain, but now shone with steely determination. Why? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. David released her shoulders and took a step back, as if he had become aware of the intimacy of the moment. Because Annabelle went through something similar before she met me. Her first boyfriend mistreated her. When I met her, she was still afraid of her own shadow. It took me months to earn her trust. The phone rang again. This time Emily answered it. What do you want, Mark? The voice on the other end was exactly as she remembered it. Sweet at first, then threatening. Baby, why did you run away from me? Do you know how worried I am? I've been looking all over the city for you. I'm not in the city anymore, and I don't want to see you again. Oh, baby, don't say that. You know we're forever. Besides, I already talked to your sister. I know you're in Charleston. Emily's heart stopped for a second. You talked to Sarah? Of course, a very nice girl. She told me you're working as a nanny. Seriously, Em, you'd rather wipe some kid's snot than be with me? David snatched the phone from her hands. "Listen to me carefully, Mark," he said in a voice Emily had never heard before, cold as steel. "Emily is under my protection. If you come near her, if you continue to bother her, if you even think about coming to Charleston, you'll have to deal with me. Understood?" From the other end of the phone came a sarcastic laugh that chilled Emily's blood. "And who are you, hero? The kid's dad? Look, buddy, don't meddle in what's not your business. Emily is mine, you understand? And I'm coming for her whether you like it or not. Try it," David replied with lethal calm. "I'll be waiting." He hung up and handed the phone back to Emily, who was trembling like a leaf. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "Now he'll come. He's dangerous when he's angry." "Let him come," David said, running a hand through his hair. "I have contacts in the police, and my firm handles domestic violence cases. You're not the first woman I've protected from an abuser." Emily looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and terror. "Why are you doing this for me? You barely know me." David approached again, this time taking her face in his hands with a tenderness that made her tremble for entirely different reasons. "Because when I first saw you in that garden with my son, I saw something I hadn't seen in months, hope. And because—" he stopped, fighting with himself. "Because for 6 months I haven't felt anything. And with you, I'm starting to feel again." The air between them crackled with electricity. Emily could feel David's breath on her face, see the small lines around his eyes, count the lashes that framed those blue eyes that made her feel like the only woman in the world. "David, she began to say, but he silenced her by placing a finger on her lips. "Don't say anything now. Just let me protect you, okay?" She nodded, unable to look away from him. At that moment, a light came on in Leo's window. "The boy," Emily murmured, taking a step back. "He has nightmares often," David explained, the spell broken. I should go check on him." "I'll go with you," she said, and together they went up the stairs to the boy's room. Leo was sitting up in bed, hugging a pillow with tears running down his cheeks. "Dad, I dreamed again that Mom was leaving and I couldn't reach her," the boy sobbed. David sat on the bed and hugged his son, but Emily noticed the stiffness in his movements, as if he didn't know how to comfort him. "It was just a dream, champ," David murmured, but his voice sounded empty. Emily approached slowly and sat on the other side of the bed. "Leo, want me to tell you a secret?" she asked softly. The boy looked at her with swollen eyes. "What secret?" "When I was little and had nightmares about my mum, my grandmother taught me something very special. Want me to show you?" Leo nodded. Emily took the boy's small hands in hers. "Close your eyes and take a deep breath with me, like this. Now imagine that your heart is like a little house where your mom lives. Every time you miss her, you just have to put your hand here," she said, placing Leo's hand on his chest, "and say, 'Mom, I'm here. I love you.' Do you feel how your heart beats stronger?" "Yes," Leo whispered, his eyes still closed. "That strong beat is your mum telling you, 'I love you too, my beautiful boy.' And every time you feel that beat, it will be like she's hugging you." Leo opened his eyes, looking at Emily with amazement. "Really? Really? Want to try it?" The boy placed his hand on his chest and whispered, "Mum, I'm here. I love you." A moment later, a small smile appeared on his face. "It works. I feel her hug." David watched the scene with an expression Emily couldn't decipher. There was something broken in his eyes, something that spoke of a pain so deep that he had disconnected from his own son to avoid facing it. "Now you try, Dad," Leo said, taking David's hand and placing it on his own chest. "Leo, David began, but his voice broke. "Please, Dad. Maybe if you talk to Mum, you won't be so sad anymore." David looked at Emily, and she saw a silent plea in his eyes. She nodded encouragingly. With trembling hands, David placed his hand on his chest and closed his eyes. "Annabelle," he whispered, and his voice broke completely. "I miss you so much. I don't know how to take care of our son without you. I don't know how to live without you." Tears began to roll down his cheeks, and for the first time since his wife's death, David allowed himself to cry in front of his son. Leo snuggled against his father, and Emily watched as they clung to each other like shipwreck survivors in a storm. "It's okay, Dad," Leo whispered. "Mom will teach us." Together. Emily stood up silently, feeling she was witnessing something sacred, something this family needed to share without witnesses. But before she left the room, David took her by the wrist. "Thank you," he murmured, and in that simple word was a universe of gratitude. 2 weeks after the encounter with Mark, life in Mrs. Miller's house had found a peaceful rhythm. Emily had become much more than a nanny. She was Leo's confidant, Mrs. Miller's right hand, and something that David still didn't know how to define. Every morning she prepared breakfast while humming songs that filled the kitchen with a warmth that had been absent for too long. Leo had stopped having nightmares and now ran to her every afternoon when he came home from school, enthusiastically telling her about his friends, his classes, his small daily triumphs. David had started coming home earlier from work, making excuses about cases he could handle from home. The truth was that he couldn't resist those late afternoon moments when he found Emily and Leo in the garden, she helping him with his homework while he told her stories about his day. "Dad, did you know Em knows how to play the guitar?" Leo announced one evening at dinner. David looked up, surprised. "Really?" Emily blushed. "A little. My mum taught me when I was little." "Play something," Leo requested enthusiastically. "No, I don't think—" "Please," David intervened, and there was something in his voice that made her look directly at him. "I'd like to hear you." Mrs. Miller disappeared for a few minutes and returned with a dusty acoustic guitar. "It was my late husband's," she explained. "It's been stored away since he passed, but I'm sure he would have liked for someone to use it again." Emily took the guitar reverently, tuning it carefully. When she began to play, a soft, melancholy melody filled the dining room. Then she began to sing with a voice that was like honey and velvet. "In the silence of the night, when the world is fast asleep, my heart searches for your name on the breeze that softly weeps." David felt as if someone had punched him in the chest. Emily's voice wasn't technically perfect, but it had something that touched the soul directly. It was pure emotion turned into sound. Leo watched her with absolute adoration, but David looked at her as if he were seeing a woman for the first time in his life. When the song ended, a reverent silence filled the room. "That song, is it yours?" David asked in a hoarse voice. "I wrote it after my mom died," Emily admitted, looking down. "I've never sung it for anyone before." "It's beautiful," he whispered. You are beautiful." Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment the world stood still. There was something different in the way David looked at her, something that made Emily feel butterflies in her stomach and a strange warmth spreading through her body. Another one, Leo shouted, breaking the spell. "Tomorrow, sweetie," Emily said, returning the guitar to Mrs. Miller with trembling hands. "It's time for your bath." After putting Leo to bed, Emily sat in her room writing in her journal. The words flowed like never before. "Dear Diary, today David looked at me differently, as if he really saw me. I don't know what it means, but for the first time since I got here, I wonder if it's possible for someone like him to notice someone like me, not in the way Mark wanted me, possessive, controlling, destructive, but in a clean, honest way that makes me feel more like myself instead of less." A soft knock on her door interrupted her. "Emily, can I come in?" It was David. She quickly put the journal away and opened the door. He was standing there, tieless, with the top buttons of his shirt undone, and Emily had to make a conscious effort not to stare too obviously. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Yes, just, can we talk? In the garden, I mean." They went downstairs together. In silence. The night was warm, full of stars and the scent of the gardenias Mrs. Miller grew by the back fence. "I wanted to thank you," David said once they were settled on the steps that had become their spot. "For what?" "For tonight, for singing that song. It's been months since I've felt music, since I've felt beauty, since I've felt anything." Emily noticed his hands were trembling slightly. And you feel it now? Now I feel too much, he admitted, running his hands through his hair. And that scares me. Why does it scare you? David turned to her, and in his eyes was a vulnerability that completely disarmed her. Because Annabelle was my wife, the mother of my son, and I loved her with every fibre of my being. When she died, I swore I would never love anyone like that again, that I would never do that to her memory. And what's changed? You, he said simply. You've changed everything. In 2 weeks, you've brought laughter back to my house. You've helped my son heal. You've made me remember what it feels like to be alive. Emily's heart was beating so fast, she was sure he could hear it. David, I know it's complicated, he continued, not letting her finish. I know you're healing from your own experience. I know I'm your employer, that there's a power imbalance, that... David, she said softly, placing a hand on his. Stop. He fell silent, looking at the point where their hands touched. I'm not your employee, she continued. I am a grown woman who is here by her own choice, and what I feel when I'm with you, when I see you playing with Leo, when you look at me the way you looked at me tonight during the song, it's not gratitude or confusion or Stockholm Syndrome or anything else you might be thinking. What is it then? Emily took a deep breath, gathering her courage. It's hope. It's the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I deserve to be loved the right way. And it's that when I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself. David looked at her for a long time, as if memorizing every detail of her face. Emily, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to take advantage of your situation. I don't want you to think you have to feel something for me to stay safe here. And what if I tell you it's not because of that? What if I tell you that what I feel for you has nothing to do with my need for protection, and everything to do with the way you make me feel when you smile, with the way you listen to Leo when he tells you about his day, with the way you've cried in front of me without trying to look strong? David closed his eyes, as if her words were physically painful. Annabelle, he began. Annabelle was your wife, and you love her, Emily said firmly, and that will never change. But David, loving someone new doesn't mean you stop loving someone you lost. It means your heart is big enough for both loves. How can you be so sure? Because I loved my mom with all my heart, and when she died, I thought I would never love anyone again. But then I came here and fell in love with Leo, and then I started to fall in love with you. And instead of feeling like I was betraying my mom, I felt like I was finally honoring what she taught me about love. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Then I started to fall in love with you. The silence that followed was deafening. David looked at her with an intensity that made her feel naked, exposed, vulnerable in a way she had never experienced. Are you sure? He finally asked, his voice hoarse. Are you sure it's not because you need to feel safe? Or because I represent stability after what you went through with Mark? Emily stood up, moving a few steps away. When she turned back to him, there was a determination in her eyes that David hadn't seen before. David Williams, listen to me very carefully. I lived for 2 years with a man who convinced me I didn't know what I was feeling, that I couldn't trust my own emotions, that I needed him to tell me what was real and what wasn't. I will not allow you, or anyone else, to make me doubt what I know to be true again. She approached him, stopping just in front of his knees. I know the difference between need and desire. I know the difference between gratitude and love. I know the difference between taking refuge in someone and choosing to be with someone. And what I feel for you is a choice, David. It's a pure choice. David slowly stood up until he was standing in front of her. The height difference meant she had to tilt her head up to look him in the eyes. If we do this, he said in a shaky voice, if we allow ourselves to feel this, there's no going back, because I don't know how to love in halves, Emily. When I love with everything, and you think I know how to love any other way. He studied her for a few more seconds, as if making the most important decision of his life. Then, slowly, he raised his hands to cup her face in his palms. Can you love someone who broke your soul? The answer is just a step away. he whispered, and Emily didn't know if he was referring to Annabel or Mark or both. "Yes, you can," she replied with absolute certainty, "but only if you're willing to let someone repair it." And then, finally, David leaned in and kissed her. It was a soft kiss at first, full of questions and as tentative as a promise. But when Emily responded, when her arms rose to wrap around his neck, the kiss deepened into a wordless conversation about pain and hope, about loss and possibility, about two broken souls who had found in each other the chance to be whole again. When they finally broke apart, they were both crying. "I don't know how to do this," David whispered against her forehead. "Me neither," she admitted, "but we can learn together." At that moment, a light came on in Leo's window. "The boy," David murmured, but this time he didn't immediately. "Pull away from Emily. Let's go see what he needs," she said, taking his hand, and together, like a couple, like a family, they went up to care for the boy who had brought them together. Leo was sitting up in bed, but this time he wasn't crying. He was smiling. "What's up, champ?" David asked, sitting on the bed. "I dreamed about Mom again," Leo said, "but this time it wasn't a sad dream." "What did you dream?" Emily asked, sitting on the other side of the bed. "I dreamed that Mom was in the garden, under the magnolia tree. She told me she was happy because you and Dad are taking care of each other, and that she doesn't have to worry about us anymore, because now we're a family again." David and Emily looked at each other over Leo's head, both surprised by the boy's wisdom. "Does that make you happy?" David asked softly. "Very," Leo replied, snuggling between them. "Does this mean Em is going to stay forever?" Emily felt her heart race. It was too soon for promises, too soon for words like forever. But David surprised her by taking her hand over the boy. "It means we're going to try to be happy together," he said, "the three of us." Leo smiled and closed his eyes, seemingly satisfied with that answer. When the boy fell asleep, David and Emily remained sitting on the bed, holding hands, silently processing everything that had changed between them in a single night. "What are you thinking about?" David whispered. "That 3 weeks ago, I was a broken woman running from a man who hurt me, and now I'm here, holding the hand of the man I'm falling in love with, helping to care for a boy who is becoming the son of my heart. Does the speed of all this scare you?" "It should," she admitted. "But no, it feels right, like I've been looking for this place, this family, my whole life without knowing it." David brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I don't know how it happened so fast either," he murmured against her skin. "But you're right. It feels right." A month after their first kiss, the relationship between David and Emily had blossomed like the magnolias in spring. Each day brought small moments of happiness. Shared breakfasts before David left for work, afternoons helping Leo with his homework, nights talking in the garden until late. Emily had begun to feel truly at home for the first time in years. She had decorated her room with flowers from the garden, learned to cook Leo's favorite dishes, and had found a part-time job teaching guitar at a nearby cultural center. Can you teach me to play that song you wrote for your mom?" Leo asked one rainy afternoon while they were practicing scales. "It's a very sad song, sweetie. Wouldn't you rather learn something more cheerful?" "But I want to play it for Mom Annabel too. Dad says that when you play music for someone in heaven, they can hear you." Emily's heart filled with tenderness. "Okay, but it's a little difficult. Let's start slow." As she was teaching him the basic chords, David arrived home early from work. He had been promoted to junior partner at the law firm, and while that meant more responsibilities, it also meant more flexible hours. "How's my family?" he asked, kissing the crown of Leo's head and then Emily's lips with a natural ease. "Leo is learning my song," she replied, feeling the warmth spread through her chest every time David referred to them as his family. "The song about Em's grandma?" David asked, sitting on the sofa to listen. "No, the song about her mom, and Leo wants to play it for Mom Annabel too." Something changed in David's expression. A shadow crossed his face, but it disappeared so quickly that Emily thought she had imagined it. That's great, champ," David said, but his voice sounded forced. That night, after putting Leo to bed, Emily noticed that David was quieter than usual. "Everything okay at work?" she asked as they sat in their usual spot in the garden. "Yeah, work is fine," he replied. But he avoided eye contact. "Then what's wrong? You've seemed distant since this afternoon." David ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Emily had learned to recognize as a sign that something was bothering him. "Emily, I need to tell you something. Something about Annabelle, and about how she died." A chill ran down Emily's spine. In the month they had been together, David had spoken very little about the specific circumstances of his wife's death. "I'm listening," she said softly. David took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "Everyone thinks Annabelle died in a car accident, that a truck hit her when she was going for ice cream for Leo's birthday. That's what we told Leo, what we told my mom, what we told everyone. But it's not true. It's true, but it's not the whole truth." Emily felt her stomach clench. "What really happened, David? Annabelle was hit by a truck. She did die on the way to the hospital, but it wasn't an accident." The words fell between them like stones in a tranquil lake, creating ripples that disturbed everything. "What do you mean?" David stood up and began to pace like a caged animal. Annabelle had been very depressed after Leo was born. At first we thought it was normal postpartum depression, but it got worse. She didn't want to get out of bed. She didn't want to hold the baby. She didn't want to eat. Emily felt a lump form in her throat. "I took her to psychiatrists, to psychologists. She started taking medication. There were times when she seemed to be better, and then she would fall back into those black holes where I couldn't reach her." "For how long?" 2 years. 2 years of constant ups and downs. I did everything I could to help her, but I also had to work. I had to take care of Leo when she couldn't. I was exhausted." David stopped in front of her, tears in his eyes. "The morning she died, we had a terrible fight. I told her she needed to make an effort, that Leo needed his mother to be present. I told her I couldn't keep living as if I were the only one responsible for our family." "David," Emily began, but he raised a hand to stop her. She locked herself in the bathroom crying. "I went to work furious, without saying goodbye, without telling her I loved her, without knowing it would be the last time I'd see her alive." "What happened next?" "After I left, she left the house. My mum thought she had gone for ice cream for Leo's birthday as we had planned, but I think she left because she couldn't take it anymore, because she felt like a burden to all of us." The truth hit Emily like a bolt of lightning. "Do you think it was—" "I don't know," David said, collapsing onto the steps beside her. "I'll never know. The witnesses said she was walking distractedly, that she didn't see the truck. But Emily, she had tried to hurt herself before. There had been signs that I didn't want to see, or that I didn't know how to interpret." Emily hugged him, feeling his body tremble. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "What for? So Leo can grow up wondering if his mom didn't love him enough to stay? So my mother can blame herself for not seeing the signs? So everyone can whisper that my wife killed herself because I wasn't a good husband? David, you weren't responsible for her depression. Wasn't I? I was the one who pushed her to have a baby when she wasn't sure. I was the one who worked all the time and left her alone with a newborn. I was the one who yelled at her the morning she died. You were a man trying to keep his family afloat in impossible circumstances," Emily said firmly. "Postpartum depression is an illness, David. An illness that can be fatal. It's no one's fault. I've been to therapy. I've read all the books. Rationally, I understand it wasn't my fault, but emotionally, I still feel like I failed her." Emily then understood why David had taken so long to open up to love again, why he had become so protective of Leo, why he had built such high walls around his heart. "Is that why you were afraid to fall in love again? Afraid of failing someone else?" "Exactly. And then you came along, and everything felt so easy, so natural. But today, when Leo said he wanted to play that song for Annabelle, I realized that I'm lying to my own son about how his mother died. And what do you want to do?" David looked at her with eyes full of pain. "I don't know. Part of me wants to tell him the truth when he's older, when he can understand it. But another part of me wants to protect him from that burden forever. Emily took his face in her hands. David, look at me. You don't have to make that decision now. Leo is 8 years old. There's still time to figure out the best way to handle this. And us, does this change anything between us? The question took her by surprise. Why would it change anything? Because now you know I'm broken in a deeper way than you thought. Because you know there are parts of me that I might never be able to fully heal. Emily moved closer to him until their faces were just inches apart. David Williams, listen to me very well. We are all broken in some way. I come from an abusive relationship that made me doubt my own reality. I have emotional scars that will take years to heal. I have fears that surface without warning and paralyze me. But that's different. No, it's not different. It's human pain. It's life being hard and us doing the best we can with the tools we have. And David, the fact that you've trusted me with this, the fact that you've let me see the most vulnerable part of your soul, that doesn't push me away from you. It brings me closer. Really, really. Because now I understand why you're so gentle with me when I have rough days. Why you never push me when I need space. Why you're so patient with my fears. It's because you also know what it's like to carry invisible wounds. David kissed her then, with a desperation that spoke of gratitude and relief and deep love. I love you, he whispered against her lips. I love you in a way that scares me because it's different from how I loved Annabelle, but just as deep. I love you too, she replied, and I love your pain as much as I love your joy, because they are both part of who you are. They held each other in silence for a long time, processing the enormity of what they had shared. There's something else, David said finally. What? When Annabelle died, I made a promise. I promised that if I ever found someone else, it would be someone who understood that Leo would always be my priority. Someone who could love me without trying to compete with the memory of his mother. And you not only understand that, but you love Leo as if he were your own. And that is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me. Emily felt tears streaming down her cheeks. It's easy to love him. He's your son, but he's the sweetest boy I've ever met. And when I look at him, I see parts of you that make me fall in love even more. Emily, yes? Will you marry me? The words came so unexpectedly that for a moment Emily thought she had imagined them. What? David stood up and knelt before her, taking her hands. I know it's very soon. I know we've only been officially together for a month. But Emily, I've been searching for peace my entire adult life. And with you, I've found it. With you, Leo has found a mother who loves him unconditionally. With you, this house has become a home again. Emily stared at him, open-mouthed, unable to fully process what was happening. You don't have to answer now, he continued. I just wanted you to know that when I think about my future, I can't imagine it without you in it. David, At that moment, the back door of the house opened and Leo appeared in his pajamas, his eyes swollen with sleep. Why are you guys yelling? He asked, rubbing his eyes. David and Emily looked at each other, realizing they had been talking louder than they thought. Sorry, champ, David said, standing up. Did we wake you? A little, but it's okay. Why was Dad on his knees? Emily blushed deeply. David looked at his son, then at Emily, and then made a decision that would change everything. Leo, come here, I want to ask you something. The boy approached, and David lifted him onto his lap. How would you feel if Emily stayed with us forever? Not just as your nanny or your friend, but as a real part of our family. Leo looked at Emily with shining eyes. Like my new mom? Something like that, David said softly. Leo jumped off his father's lap and ran to Emily, hugging her tightly. Yes, 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 please say yes, Em. Emily looked at David over the boy's head. In his eyes, she saw love, hope, and an invitation to build something beautiful on the ruins of what they had lost. Yes, she whispered, and she didn't know if she was answering Leo or David or both. Yes, what? David asked, approaching them. Yes, I want to stay forever. Yes, I want to be part of this family. And yes, yes, I will marry you. David lifted her off the ground and spun her around, with Leo clapping and laughing between them. When he set her down, the three of them hugged as the family they had just officially decided to become. When's the wedding? Leo asked excitedly. I don't know, Emily admitted, laughing. It only just happened 5 minutes ago. Can I be the best man? Of course, David said. Who else could it be? But then Leo's smile faded a little. And Mom Annabelle, is she going to be sad that you're getting married? David and Emily looked at each other. It was the moment they had been dreading. Leo, Emily said softly, kneeling to his level. Do you think your Mom Annabelle wanted you and your dad to be happy? Yes. And do you think she knows me, even though I never met her? Leo thought for a moment. I think so, because Moms in heaven can see everything. Then I think she knows that I love you both very much, and I think she's happy because you don't have to be sad anymore. But you're not going to try to replace her? The question broke Emily's heart. Never, sweetie. Your Mom Annabelle will always be your first mom, the one who carried you in her tummy, the one who sang to you when you were a baby. I'm going to be your second mom, the one who will take care of you and love you for the rest of your life. Does it sound okay to have 2 mums who love you? Leo nodded solemnly. Yes, I think I'm very lucky. That night, after putting Leo back to bed, David and Emily stayed up late, making plans and talking about the future they had just decided to build together. What are you thinking? David asked, stroking her hair as she rested her head on his chest. That 3 months ago, I was a woman who thought she didn't deserve to be loved. And now I'm engaged to the kindest man I've ever met, and I'm going to be the mom to the sweetest boy in the world. Do you regret anything? Only one thing. David tensed. What? That I took so long to escape from Mark. If I had been braver sooner, I would have gotten here sooner. I would have had more time with you. No, David said firmly. You arrived exactly when you were supposed to, when the 3 of us were ready to find each other. Do you think Annabelle would have approved of this decision? David was silent for so long that Emily thought he had fallen asleep. Yes, he said finally. I think she would have said it was time for Leo to have a mother who could be present for him. And I think she would have said it was time for me to stop blaming myself and allow myself to be happy again. I love you, Emily whispered. I love you too. And tomorrow we'll start planning the rest of our lives. But what they didn't know was that tomorrow would bring a revelation that would test everything they had just built. The next morning dawned bright, as if the universe was celebrating the engagement born the night before. Emily woke up with a smile she couldn't wipe off her face, and for the first time in her adult life, she felt that the future was something to look forward to rather than fear. Em, wake up! Leo shouted, bursting into her room without knocking. Dad's making special celebration pancakes. Emily laughed, sitting up in bed and ruffling the boy's hair. Special pancakes? Yeah, with chocolate. Chips, he says they're engagement pancakes. Wow, that sounds delicious. I'll be down in 5 minutes. When she got to the kitchen, David was at the stove, quietly singing a song she didn't recognize. He was wearing the grey t-shirt he used for workouts, and his hair was messy from sleep, and Emily thought she had never seen a more handsome man. Good morning, future wife, he said, turning to kiss her. Good morning, future husband, she replied, feeling the butterflies in her stomach come to life again. Mrs. Miller walked into the kitchen at that moment, with a smile so wide it looked like it might split her face. Oh, my children! You can't imagine how happy I am. Did you tell your mum already? Emily asked David. I told her last night after you went to sleep. I think she woke up the whole neighborhood screaming with excitement. And she doesn't mind that it's so fast? Mrs. Miller came over and hugged Emily. Dearie, when 2 souls are meant to be together, time doesn't matter. I knew your grandfather was the man for me on our first date. We got married 3 months later and were together for 52 years. Really? 3 months? Emily asked, surprised. Really? And my own mother told me I was crazy, marrying someone I barely knew. But the heart knows, dearie. The heart always knows. While they were eating the special pancakes, David mentioned something that made Emily choke on her coffee. By the way, my sister Jessica is coming from Los Angeles next weekend. She wants to meet you. Your sister? The one who went through something similar to you, yes. She's very excited to meet the woman who managed to make her little brother smile again. What if she doesn't like me? David laughed. Impossible. Besides, I already told her all about you on the phone, and she said any woman who can get Leo to call me Dad again instead of just Dad is busy already has her approval. Leo used to do that. Since Annabelle died, Leo had started to distance himself from me. I think he could feel my pain and guilt, and he didn't know how to get close. But since you arrived, he's back to being the affectionate boy he was before. Emily looked at Leo, who was focused on drawing what looked like a stick-figure family on a napkin. What are you drawing, sweetie? It's our family, he replied without looking up. Look, this is Dad, this is you, this is me, and this is Grandma Miller, and this one here, he said, pointing to a fainter figure in the corner of the drawing, is Mom Annabelle. She's in heaven, but she's still part of our family. David cleared his throat, emotional. Emily reached out and squeezed his hand. It's a beautiful drawing, Leo. Can I keep it? Sure, but I'm going to make another one for the fridge so everyone can see it. After breakfast, while Mrs. Miller took Leo to buy school supplies, David and Emily were left alone in the house for the first time since they had gotten engaged. Nervous? He asked, hugging her from behind as she washed the dishes. A little, she admitted. It's just that everything is happening so fast. A week ago I was Emily, the nanny. Now I'm Emily, the future wife and stepmom. Do you regret it? No, she replied immediately. Not at all. It's just, what if I don't know how to be a wife? What if I don't know how to be a mom? David turned her around in his arms. Emily, you are already a mother. Maybe not biologically, but in all the ways that matter. Leo loves you like he loves a mother. He looks for you when he's sad. He tells you his secrets. He trusts you with everything. And a wife? And a wife? Well, I guess we'll learn together. I don't know how to be a husband for the second time either, especially when this time everything feels so different. Different how? David looked directly into her eyes. With Annabelle, our love grew slowly, over years. It was comfortable, predictable, safe. With you it's like a wildfire. Intense, passionate, changing everything in its path. Is that a bad thing? No, it's a beautiful thing. It's like I was living in black and white for years, and suddenly someone invented color. They kissed then, slow and deep, and Emily felt that familiar warmth spreading through her body. David, she murmured against his lips. When do you want to get married? He pulled back to look at her. When do you want to? I want it to be soon. I don't want a big, complicated wedding. I just want to be married to you. How about in 2 months? That would give us time to plan something small, but not so much time that we lose momentum. 2 months, she repeated, feeling her heart speed up. If that's too soon. No, it's not too soon. It's perfect. At that moment, David's phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. That's weird. It's a number from New York City that I don't recognize. Are you going to answer? David answered the call. Hello? Emily watched as his expression gradually changed from confusion to concern, and then to something that looked like shock. Yes, she's here, he said finally. But how did you get this number? There was a long pause. 1 moment, David said and handed the phone to Emily. It's for you. She says she's your sister. Emily took the phone with trembling hands. Sarah. Em, I finally found you. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. What's wrong? Is everything okay? How did you get this number? Em, to see you. It's important. It's about Mom. Emily's world stopped. What about Mom? Mom died 5 years ago, Sarah. That's what I need to tell you. Em, Mom didn't die. The phone slipped from Emily's hands and fell to the floor. David caught her as her legs gave way. What? she whispered. David picked up the phone. "Sarah, it's David, Emily's fiancé. She's very upset. Can you explain what's happening?" Emily could hear her sister's voice on the other end, but she couldn't process the words. Everything she had believed about her life, about her pain, about the reasons she had ended up with Mark, about everything was crumbling. "Sarah's coming on the next flight," David said after hanging up. "She'll be here tonight." "I don't understand," Emily murmured, trembling. "I don't understand what's happening." David led her to the sofa and held her as she cried. "Easy, my love. We'll figure it out together. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. What if it's all been a lie? What if my whole life has been built on a lie? Then we'll build a new life on the truth. But Emily, listen to me," he said, taking her face in his hands. "No matter what your sister comes to tell you, no matter what truths come to light, it doesn't change what's between us. It doesn't change that I love you, that Leo loves you, that you are part of this family." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." That afternoon passed in a haze of anxiety and unanswered questions. Emily couldn't focus on anything, couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. Leo noticed something was wrong and stuck to her like glue, as if he instinctively knew she needed his small, comforting presence. "Is Em sad?" he asked David quietly at dinner. "She's a little worried because her sister is coming to visit with important news," David explained. "Is it good news or bad news? We don't know yet, champ." "Well, if it's bad news, we can hug her until she feels better. Hugs fix everything." Emily managed a smile for the first time all day. "You're right, my love. Hugs fix everything." At 10 o'clock that night, a taxi pulled up in front of the house. Emily was waiting in the living room, with David by her side and Leo asleep on her lap. Sarah walked up the porch steps, and when Emily opened the door, the two sisters looked at each other for several seconds without saying anything. Sarah had changed. She was thinner, had deep, dark circles under her eyes, and there was something in her expression that spoke of heavy secrets she had carried for too long. "Hi, Em," she said finally. "Hi, Sarah." They hugged, but it wasn't the warm embrace of sisters who had missed each other. It was the tense hug of two people who knew they were about to face something that would change everything. David took Leo to his room and returned to sit next to Emily on the sofa. Sarah sat in the chair across from them. "Before you begin," David said, "I want you to know that whatever is said here stays between us. Emily is my family now, and her family is my family." Sarah nodded, seemingly grateful for the support David was offering. "Em," she began, "what I'm about to tell you is going to be very hard to hear, but you need to know the truth. Just tell me, Sarah. I can't wait anymore." Sarah took a deep breath. "Mom didn't die of cancer 5 years ago. Mom is alive. She's in Philadelphia, in a private psychiatric clinic." The silence that followed was deafening. "What?" Emily managed to articulate. "Mom had a severe mental breakdown after Dad left. She became dangerous, to herself and to us. I was 17, you were 20. I didn't know what to do." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you had just gotten a job. You had met Mark. You were trying to build a life. And Mom had tried to hurt herself several times. The doctors said she needed long-term specialized care." Emily shot to her feet abruptly. "Are you telling me that for 5 years you've let me believe my mother was dead when she's actually alive in a clinic?" "Em, let me explain." "No, there's no explanation that justifies this. I mourned for her. I went to therapy for years trying to deal with her death. I told Mark about her death, and he used my pain to manipulate me." David moved toward her, but Emily pulled away. "Where is she now? How is she?" "She's better," Sarah said, tears in her eyes. "Much better. The new medications have worked. The doctors say she can get out soon, that she can live independently with minimal supervision." "And why are you telling me now?" Because she asks for you every day, because she wants to see you, and because I can't carry this lie anymore." Emily felt as if the floor was moving beneath her feet. "I need some air," she murmured, heading for the back door. David followed her into the garden, where she sat on the steps with her head in her hands. I don't know what to think, she said in a broken voice. I don't know what to feel. My mother is alive, David. My mother is alive, and I've been living like an orphan for 5 years. I know, my love. It's impossible to process. What kind of person am I that part of me is furious with her for being alive? You're a person who has every right to be furious. You were lied to about something fundamental. Your sister, no matter her intentions, took 5 years of a relationship with your mother away from you. And what if I don't forgive her? What if I'm so angry I can't forgive either of them? David sat beside her and held her. Then you'll take the time you need to process this. There's no timeline for forgiveness, Emily. There's no right way to react to news like this. And us. And our wedding? How can I marry you when I don't even know who I am? David looked her directly in the eye. You know exactly who you are. You are the woman who escaped an abusive relationship to build a better life. You are the woman who loves my son as if he were her own. You are the woman who helped me heal from my own pain. You are Emily Johnson, and the fact that your mother is alive instead of dead doesn't change any of that. Are you sure? Completely sure. And Emily, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. How can this be a blessing? Because now you have the chance to introduce your mother to the man you love and the boy you're going to adopt, because she can be at our wedding, because Leo will have another grandmother. For the first time since she had answered the phone, Emily smiled through her tears. Do you think she'll want to meet you? I think any mother would be happy to know her daughter found someone who loves her as much as I love you. They returned to the house, where Sarah was waiting in the living room, her eyes swollen from crying. Em, I know you're angry with me, and you have every right to be, but please, will you come with me to see Mom? Emily looked at David, who nodded encouragingly. When? Tomorrow, if you want, or whenever you feel ready. I'll go with you, David said, if you want me to. Really? Really? We're a team now, remember? Emily turned to her sister. Sarah, before we go see Mum, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never lie to me about something like this again. Promise me that no matter how hard the truth is, you'll tell me. I promise, Em. I promise. Okay, Emily said after several minutes. Tomorrow, we'll go see Mom. That night, they slept. Abrazados, grateful, and completely certain that no matter what challenges tomorrow brought, they would face them together. And in the room next door, Leo wrote in his own journal an entry that said, Today I played a song for my 2 mums, and my whole family cried, but they were happy tears. Dad and Emily are going to have a baby, and Aunt Sarah is already planning how she's going to teach them to play baseball. I think we're the luckiest family in the world. Mom Annabelle, if you can read this. From heaven, I want you to know that I'm happy, that Dad is happy, that we found a way to love you forever, while also loving the new people who came into our lives. Thank you for sending me Emily. I think you two would have gotten along great. And perhaps, somewhere among the stars above Charleston, Annabelle was smiling, knowing that her family had found a way to heal without forgetting, to love without betraying, to build a new happiness on the solid foundation of love that never dies.